Causes me a little extra stress. Mr. Walton, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Causes me a little extra stress because I feel like I'm a kid again giving a report card to mom and dad, you know? And that's really what we're doing this morning is talking about the community and the fact that the community is doing well, but also taking a look at the results of the Taking Charge Customer Satisfaction Survey so that we can get yet again another snapshot of what the community is thinking about how well we're doing. I think that Lincoln residents have told us that City Hall is doing pretty well. On 19 of 21 service areas surveyed, citizens expressed significant satisfaction with the city. 19 out of 21. If you're in school, you get an A for that, right, Lisa? That has been a relatively consistent trend over the 3 City of Lincoln customer satisfaction surveys completed in 2009, 2012, and now again in 2015. Overall, city services are meeting most of the community's expectations, but we obviously must always be striving to get better. We must provide effective programs and strong customer service, and we must strive to be an organization with a culture of self-examination, reflection, and continuous improvement. And I think we're getting there. The Taking Charge Citizen Satisfaction Survey helps city leaders manage and monitor the city's performance. By asking our residents to evaluate our services, we learn that City Hall is doing well, and we learned what can be improved. The survey helps us overall better understand the community's expectations. Nearly 2,000 community members took part in the Taking Charge surveys. More than 600 randomly selected citizens completed a mailed version of the survey to give us a more accurate snapshot of what the overall community thinks. We also wanted to encourage everyone to participate, and we offered the same survey online and in paper versions at public libraries. Another 1,200 people volunteered their time to complete those surveys. My remarks will focus almost exclusively on the results of the random selected survey. Lisa Picklick-Zillig from the Public Policy Center, Lisa's over here to my right, will talk more about both versions of the survey when she comes up in a few minutes here. It is clear that citizens are enjoying the benefits of Lincoln's historic economic growth. From the 2012 survey to the 2015 survey, the strongest increases in people's satisfaction was with employment opportunities and job creation and economic development. With an unemployment rate that is among the nation's lowest and an economy that receives national recognition for its successes, Lincoln residents are clearly feeling optimistic about their economic opportunities. That satisfaction with the economy is demonstrated in responses to another survey question. Compared to the last survey, more Lincoln residents are saying that the city is properly planning and developing. There is a 10% increase in the number of people who agreed that Lincoln's plan for growth is proceeding in the right direction. Our changes to the snow removal program are having an impact on residents' views. The change in attitude on snow plowing is a great example of why we commission a customer satisfaction survey. The 2012 random sample survey showed a dissatisfaction level with our snow plowing During the last snow season, Public Works experimented with a new process to keep streets free of ice. The decision to use salt brine helped prevent ice formation, making snow clearance quicker and more effective. The public identified an area on which they wanted improvement, and City Hall took action. Public attitudes moved from dissatisfaction with snow removal in 2012 to satisfaction in the 2015 survey in the random sample survey. While the 2015 volunteer respondents showed a decrease in satisfaction, they still indicated that they were more satisfied than dissatisfied with snow removal. We are hopeful the new process will continue to improve resident satisfaction with snow removal. We've made neighborhoods a priority, and neighborhood services continue to be an area of strength for us. Residents continue to give us relatively high marks for fixing sidewalks, neighborhood appearance, and safety. Two areas showed significant increases: the snow plowing of neighborhood streets and safety and security of the neighborhoods. Lincoln libraries continue to impress Lincoln residents. 75% of survey respondents use library services, and they give a very high rating to those services. While it's great to hear good news about city services, it is even more important that we hear about what is not going so well in the eyes of our citizens. The information compels us then to examine our strategies and determine what changes we need to make to improve service. It is clear that Lincoln continues to be concerned about street maintenance. Survey takers reported significant dissatisfaction in this area. The good news is that we've heard the community's assessment, and we've already responded with, of course, the campaign of the spring and summer, which continues the summer of progress in fixing and repairing roads. In addition to major street construction and repair now underway, Public Works is using new equipment and new techniques to repair our streets more quickly and more efficiently. This summer, we set a pace to nearly triple our amount of permanent asphalt repairs annually. We have purchased new pothole filling equipment that allows one employee to do the work of 3. The increased efficiency will allow Public Works to shift personnel to more permanent street repair work. I'm confident that these improvements will increase citizen satisfaction significantly by the next survey. I was kind of amused by a little comment. You know, we asked people to make comments and make suggestions about how we can improve things, and we got a ton of them. I think you would find it interesting in going through them. But one of them was simply very short, and it said, "Why are you fixing all the streets at once?" You know? So you don't fix the streets, you have a problem. You fix them too fast, you have a problem. But I want to assure people that we're getting to the point, which is not very far off, where hopefully we'll find that balance between fixing things too fast and not fixing things, so that people have a not so much pressure in both directions. Going forward here, the survey respondents that ride StarTran want to improve the hours of operation, how often the buses come, and the areas of town that are served. It appears that many riders believe the time has come for Lincoln to expand its services. StarTran is currently updating its transit development plan. And this will be the opportunity for the city residents to discuss what solutions can be implemented to improve customer satisfaction in this area. Our management of stormwater and sewer received lower marks than in previous surveys, with the Salt Creek flooding in the north bottoms and the south bottoms, and residents near the Teresa Street plant experiencing sewer backups. It's understandable why residents feel this area needs thought and attention. A study here is also being currently conducted on the sewer backups, and before long we will be discussing with you what steps can be taken to reduce the flooding potential of Salt Creek. Finally, citizens are asking us to think more about city recycling and sustainability efforts, which showed a satisfaction decrease between the 2012 and the 2015 surveys. I fully agree with our citizens in their assessment. I believe more needs to be done to promote recycling and sustainable practices. I look forward to working with my colleagues on the City Council to make the policy changes that at a minimum will bring Lincoln more in line with the efforts of our peer cities. We are behind in this area. My friend Lisa, why don't you come on up? We'll now present her analysis of the survey results. Lisa, as many of you know, is a research associate at the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center, who has been the city's longtime partner in this effort, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate what they do for us and how they make sense of things for us. So Lisa, why don't you go ahead with your presentation?
Thank you, Mayor. My brief overview will cover some of the same information that the Mayor mentioned in his remarks, but will, as he mentioned, include comparisons between both the random sample survey and the volunteer sample, and as an added bonus, will include pictures and the magic of PowerPoint. Before we go to the results, I want to thank those who participated. Considering who participated also lets us know if we're missing any voices, an important consideration if you are hoping to hear from everyone, and we are. This year we had approximately the same number of random sample participants as in 2012, more than 600 both years. We also had a lot more volunteers this year, more than 1,200 this year compared to about 700 in 2012. This, of course, makes me wonder, are we getting the word out more? Or given that, in general, the volunteer respondents do tend to be more critical, did something really bad happen to upset them and drive them to the survey? We'll look at some results that kind of give us some insight into the answer to that question. Overall, this year, we had more females responding in the random sample, but about equal gender representation in the volunteer sample. Self-reported education levels were also a bit higher this year than in 2015, and the sample was again predominantly white. Given that the census indicates that only about 88% of Lincoln is white, this does mean we need to do a better job reaching out to minority voices. We did receive a more balanced representation of areas of the city, with about 57% of the sample coming from central zip codes, which is pretty close to the census estimates. And finally, as we commonly find in these surveys, the sample was a bit older than you might expect. It didn't include too many younger adults. The average ages of the samples were in the early to mid-50s. But a big thank you to everyone who participated. So moving on to the pictures I promised, this is just a bird's eye view of the service areas that people are asked to rate. And by bird's eye view, I mean you probably can't read the font. But I promise to zoom in sometimes so that you don't get a headache from squinting. Note that the areas are lined up from areas of least to most satisfaction. The red bars represent 2012 responses, the blue bars 2015 responses. The darker bars are the random sample surveys, and the lighter bars are the volunteer responses. And then the numbers are this year's random sample participant average responses. The reason for the axis in the middle of the graph is to represent the neutral point. Because people gave ratings indicating how satisfied or dissatisfied they were, Average answers falling below the axis represent overall average dissatisfaction, and those above the axis represent overall satisfaction. As the mayor mentioned, overall there were a lot more areas of satisfaction, as you can see, than dissatisfaction, both this year and in 2012. Areas of particularly high satisfaction included overall quality of life and emergency responding, the same areas that received high ratings in 2012. And note that the reason we have some of these bars standing alone in red or blue is because we changed the wording of that question this year compared to 2012. In 2012, we asked about emergency and fire services together. In 2015, we separated them out. But as you can see, despite that change, we still got very high ratings for those two areas. Another set of blue bars standing alone pertains to ease of walking in the city. As you can see, that fell kind of right in the middle of all the satisfaction responses. And areas of low satisfaction this year were also the same areas that received low areas in 2012. Street maintenance was the only area that both the random sample and the volunteer sample agreed that they were dissatisfied. And this was also the lowest rated service in 2012. Other areas of relatively lower satisfaction included unsightly or blighted properties, snow plowing, and ease of car travel in the city. At this point, I did want to just point out that this high to low representation, while interesting and useful for seeing how relatively satisfied people are, is maybe just a little unfair in some respects. This is because there's really a different psychology that goes into assessing satisfaction with emergency services, which people always rate higher, and satisfaction with roads, which people always rate lower. When asked about emergency services, people are probably thinking about that time that they or a loved one needed help and help was on the way, or maybe a time that they saw a huge fire downtown and aren't we glad that the fire department showed up to put it out. Meanwhile, when you're encountering roads, it's usually on the way to or from work. You might have had a long, hard day and you're wondering why you can't get home faster. Or maybe you're on your way to your niece's birthday party and you forgot that 56th was closed and you should have taken 70th. Not that I have any experience with this. But my point is that we're probably never going to see roads rated as more satisfactory than emergency services, which is one of the reasons why we like to look at over time and why we're glad that we can do these surveys over time so that we can see areas of decrease and increase. So finally, I'm going to let you stop squinting and zoom in. All of the decreases occurred here towards the lower end of the spectrum. So here I'll zoom in to give your eyes a break. As the mayor mentioned, the two areas of decreased satisfaction for the random sample were in waste and stormwater management and recycling and sustainability efforts. Among the volunteer sample, the areas were snow plowing, available of affordable housing, and again, stormwater and wastewater management. So both samples were less satisfied with storm and wastewater management than in 2012. And as the mayor pointed out, this survey did take place. It started in June, and some of you may remember these pictures from May relating to Lincoln's flood. So those are the areas of less satisfaction, which I'm going to mark on this graph with some lovely little arrows. Next, we'll turn to areas of increased satisfaction. Between the random samples in 2012 and 2015, we saw three areas of increase, already mentioned: economic development, employment opportunities, and snow plowing. For those of us over 40, here's that information in a bigger font, and here are the arrows for our increased satisfaction. The differences between the volunteer samples were more dramatic in terms of number. It does not seem that the volunteer sample came to the survey because they were dissatisfied this year. Hopefully that means we're just getting the word out better. The 2015 sample was more satisfied than the 2012 sample in 11 different areas. I've listed those areas here. Two of these areas, economic development and employment opportunities, were also areas of increase among the random sample, so they get the honor of being bolded and starred. Although the satisfaction ratings were generally good, I also wanted to point out the richness and variability of our qualitative data, which the mayor also mentioned. The qualitative data is really important for adding detail and context to all of these otherwise just purely numeric ratings. We had between 97 and 67 pages of comments, depending on font size. I chose the smaller font size because I like trees. As you can see from these few comments that we took from those many pages, a number of people mentioned developments relating to downtown, the Haymarket, parks and trails, and employment opportunities. However, no matter how high the city scores in these areas or in other areas, it's always impossible to improve. The variability in the written comments also provides information about where people would like to see some improvements, even in places where people are pretty satisfied relating to economic development and jobs. So as you can see from other comments, while people agreed that there were more jobs, some people felt that those were lower paying jobs and that what Lincoln really needs is jobs that offer higher wages. And another common complaint, which we always get, was around taxes. With that said, here's our final set of arrows to represent the significantly more positive attitudes of our volunteer sample. And here is the final bird's eye view of our results. And there are, of course, many more results that you can find online at either Lincoln's website or the PPC website. And I hope you'll go get them and read them, but don't print them because there's a lot of pages.
Lisa, don't run away here. Let me say a couple of things, and then you and I will see if we can handle questions as between us. Again, I want to encourage people to look at the materials online when they can take a little more time and go into as much detail as they want, and it will be online, as I understand it, later today or tomorrow anyway.
Already, maybe?
Or already maybe.
Or already, maybe, okay. So you can go there by going to lincoln.ne.gov and clicking on Taking Charge Survey, which is the box in the center of the page and very easy to do. Obviously, the best government is the government that listens and the government that then responds with action. That's the philosophy behind the Taking Charge Public Engagement Project. So by continuing to listen to you, we make government work smarter and produce better results for everybody in the community. I want to just conclude the formal remarks here by thanking in a very serious way all of those 2,000 citizens who took part in one or another of the surveys. I particularly want to thank those of you who did take time to make comments. They are being read by a large number of people in government. And those 67 pages of thoughts on how we can improve are important to us. It's gratifying to see that so many people are committed to seeing Lincoln succeed. Our unity is a great strength here in Nebraska, here in Lincoln, and it allows us to overcome all the obstacles in our path. So I want to, again, commend the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center and Lisa for her work in helping us understand our citizenry. So thank you all. And with that, we'll take your questions.
Oh, I was disappointed is that the demo was, gosh, the age group is older. You're talking, you said in the 50s, that's kind of high. Your goal was to get younger people more involved in the community and so on. Is this disappointing?
Oh, sorry. You know, every year we're trying to find new ways to reach out. I was happy to see, I guess, that there was more balance in terms of areas of town. But yeah, I mean, for me to get an A, I guess I'd like to see all of the census things match what the census already is. I'd like people to feel open and willing and motivated. But as someone who's not that far away from being a young parent, frankly, I can understand why maybe younger people aren't flocking to the survey.
Mayor, how do you respond to the request for higher paying jobs?
Well, that's a difficult one to respond to. And it involves so many different circumstances that I don't think there's any one answer to it. Certainly, as we look at the various tools that are available to us, we do the best we can to encourage higher paying jobs. The economic development tools that the state provides and the economic development tools that the city provides are always selected and applied with an eye to higher paying jobs. But going along with that are other sets of problems, of course, like training people for higher paying jobs. And as you're well aware, we are moving big time into more serious education and training programs. That is being responded to with the Career Academy. That's going to be responded to further by the Chamber and the Angelou report items. And it'll be responded to through the Community Learning Center ideas. We know these things, and we'll continue to work at those higher paying jobs through those various methodologies. You also have to keep in mind that there's a relationship between the cost of things in a community and the salaries in a community. The Chamber has always bemoaned the fact that it's hard to go out to California and identify the pay levels because people tend, especially young people, tend to look at things in terms of the dollar amount of the wage and not the dollar amount of the purchasing power. Housing is really low in our community. Other things are much lower. And so I pay a lot of attention to the affordability scales that come out from time to time comparing cities and communities. And of course, as you know, we're almost always in the top 10 list of being one of the most affordable cities. So you can't even get in the mode of looking entirely at the wages, because it's, in the end, it's the purchasing power of the wages that counts.
What would you attribute then in your survey, the dissatisfaction with the affordability of housing, because that was down somewhat, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
I wondered what you would attribute then, since you said we have low cost housing, there was the dissatisfaction with affordable housing was a little bit higher than it used to be. That had gone up.
Yeah,
Less satisfied, I should say less satisfied.
Right, they were
Yeah.
still satisfied, just a bit less.
Yeah.
And that was primarily among the, well, it was only significant among the volunteer sample. But the pattern is the same for the random sample. It just was not significant. So we don't really know if it's just a fluctuation. I do know, though, that every year the volunteer sample does tend to be more critical. There just seems to be more of a reason to go to the survey if there are things that are dissatisfying you than satisfying you. So I was very surprised to see that they actually had increased satisfaction in so many areas.
Lisa, can you talk a little bit about the margin of error?
Sure. So there's a couple of different margins of error that we think about when we're doing this. One is the margin of error just in terms of our mean estimates, which are about plus or minus 4%. And that's, for the random sample survey, that's based on the sample size and the sampling procedures. And then for statistical differences, we're trying to look at something along the lines of a 95% chance that it did not occur just randomly. So that's why even though our axes always place the bar's above or below satisfaction, sometimes we say, well, really, that's neutral, because it doesn't really exceed that little margin of error around neutral.
It really wouldn't be called a scientific survey anyhow, but not since people are just doing it if they want to, or like you're saying, when they're upset about something, or they're.
Right, right. So
it would be, yeah.
yeah, so our philosophy is that we definitely want to have that random sample survey to get some information that's more generalizable to Lincoln as a whole. And I say more generalizable rather than exactly generalizable because, again, you can't make somebody do the survey just because they received it randomly. You're still going to have some selection bias there. But we also feel it's important to listen to the voices of the people who are motivated to express them, whether it's coming to City Hall or coming to the online or paper surveys at the libraries.
Jane, just to make sure, I think you were making this distinction, the 600 version randomly selected was a scientific survey.
Mhm.
The 1200 was not, because they self-selected. And I think I heard you say that. I just want to make sure that was
Yeah,
understood.
well, yeah, okay. So-
Right.
So the margin of error refers to the random sample.
The plus or minus refers to the random sample. The significant differences we look at in both cases related to
So
the,
the more significant survey was showing dissatisfaction with housing. What you're saying is the more scientific survey was showing that people were less satisfied with affordability housing, or was it the other one?
it was the other one. The random, the volunteer sample, they were the ones less satisfied with housing. And the random sample, it was about the same, statistically speaking.
All right, you good to go? Thank you very much.
And the survey is online right now, I just checked.
The report.
The report.
Thanks.